put in the thing. That's, we'll talk about it later if this meeting lasts a decent hour.
We're on?
Good to go.
Okay. And who are we waiting for? Veronica is online. Is she with us?
She will be shortly.
Okay.
I think everybody's here.
Travis, this is your swan song.
It is.
You're going to miss us, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. I'd just like to give Veronica one moment to get in. There she is. Okay. All right, welcome everybody. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Public Safety Committee for Thursday, January 19th, 2023. First order of business is public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to address the Public Safety Committee? Anybody online? No?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. The next is changes to the agenda, and I believe we are going to remove Sheriff's Office Resolution C. Is that correct, Sheriff? You'd like to pull that for a month?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes.
And I would like to add a couple of advisory board appointments, actually 3. These are advisory board to the on indigent representation. Boy, see, I just came back from vacation. I have to learn to speak again. And so we'll pick those up without objection. We'll add those. Do we need a motion to add those?
We do not, if everyone's up in agreement.
Okay, good. All right. Next up is minutes approval from December 15th, 2022. Could I get a motion to put those on the floor? Travis moves. Veronica seconds. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, I'd call the roll. Veronica?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. Next is chair's report, and I would like to have a discussion of 2022 priorities and 2023 priorities, but I'd like to move that to the end of the meeting so that we get through all the committee reports and let our departments say their piece. But I did have a couple things I was hoping to talk about on the chair's report. One is an article that I shared with the members of the legislature on a new drug combination that's called Trank, and it's apparently a combination of opiates with xylazine, which is a veterinary tranquilizer used for horses. And this is now being used in combination, and it's truly horrific. And I shared an article from the New York Times about what it does, and it effectively eats flesh where it's injected, and the people who are using it lose limbs and lose, the function of their body as it slowly kills them. And sometimes not that slow. But apparently this is a big part of what's being sold on the streets in Philadelphia, and it's spreading to other places. And I'd love to know whether this is one of the drugs that's now being used here in Ithaca and Tompkins County.
It is.
Travis?
It's been here since October at least.
Okay.
We sent out a public safety alert about it a few months ago.
Okay, I didn't see that. You know, it seems like the nature of this drug is so bad that there would be some sort of common response, even among drug users, to try to control it. But it sounds like that may not be happening. Does anybody know anything about this?
There was a period of time where we had several lead participants overdose on it. There are people who prefer it. They prefer the high. I don't know if they're all aware of the possible outcomes. There's been some time now where people have been able to see the effects of it, but it is out here.
Question.
Please.
Jen or Travis know, is there an exposure issue with the substance similar to what you might have with fentanyl, or is it something that's more ingested?
I don't know.
Injected, but
Oh, it is injected, yeah.
yeah. But I think it's being used in combination with fentanyl even. So you don't get away from that issue.
No, that's a hazard to the responders. The fentanyl has been, and I'm just wondering.
Yeah. Okay.
Something
Well,
similar there.
I'd wanted to bring it up just for an awareness thing, but it sounds like it's already here, and we should be trying to figure out how to deal with it, if there's anything we can do. The other item I wanted to just talk about for a minute was an article that Mike Lane shared from the Long Island Press, and it was an op-ed, and it was talking about fentanyl and just how dangerous it really is, that the amount of fentanyl that can kill somebody is remarkably lower than other opiates, to the point that, you know, the amount that'll fit on the tip of a pencil can kill somebody. And what this op-ed was saying was we really shouldn't use the word overdoses anymore. We should use poisonings, because this is not something that really can be safely used in any way. And I thought that was a pretty interesting idea. You know, certainly there are people that seem to be able to tolerate a certain amount of fentanyl and can use it. But for most people, particularly people who are first introduced to the drug, it seems to be more in the nature of poison than drug use. But I share that, and I'd invite any comment anybody else had. You know, I know in our Tomstat report, you know, we have the combination of poisoning and overdose, and maybe we should be emphasizing poisoning. So, at any rate, those are my reports, or my report, just some thoughts, and we'll get to the priorities after we hear from the departments. I do have a resolution in the chair's report. This is a resolution in support of evaluating the feasibility of renovating the public safety building. And we had considered this resolution, but as written, it appeared that it was supposed to go to facilities and infrastructure before it went to the full legislature. And I believe what we intended was that it would go to the full legislature for consideration before it came back to F&I, so we could have a clear discussion on the policy of what we're trying to do. So if I could get a motion to put that on the floor and we could discuss it. Travis moves, Mike seconds. All right, questions or comments? Veronica, I know you had concerns about wanting to make sure there was enough public input on this issue. Did you have anything you wanted to say about that now?
No, I have the same concerns I had before, but I'm not 100% sure what exactly we are doing with this resolution right now. Like,
yeah,
can you just clarify what you just said?
Yeah, it's essentially the same resolution we already considered and passed, but with the direction that it'll go to the full legislature before it goes to facilities and infrastructure.
Okay, that makes sense.
Anything further? Are we ready to vote?
Are we thinking like special meeting of the legislature?
No, just, it'll come up as one of the resolutions we'll consider and vote on. Veronica?
No.
Travis?
No.
Okay, Mike?
So first, if it goes no, it still goes to F&I, because it already passed.
Wait. We're voting for this to go to F&I?
No, to go to the legislature for consideration. Okay, thank you. Mike? Yes. And the chair votes yes. So that's 3 yeses, 1 no. So that'll go to the full legislature and proceed from there. The next item on our agenda is yeah.
Take a step back. I mean, I don't really mind it going to the full legislature. I mean, I think that it should get weighed in by everybody. I just didn't know what the impetus of it was. I mean, was it just, did F&I say it's just too big, we need this?
No, the way it was written, it looked like what we had wanted to do was to send it to F&I rather than the full legislature.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why it didn't get to on the legislative agenda yet, because it had been tracked to go to F&I rather than to everybody.
I mean, I would just give Sean a heads up. I mean, that's probably going to be a pretty big discussion, I would think. I mean,
Could be. Lee,
You know, I'm not officially seated here yet, but
jump in.
given this morning's discussion at F&I about potential building and construction projects, and it's kind of in the backs of some of our minds that this is a looming project, and I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a budget and capital discussion, because somehow we're going to have to look at how we're going to fund all these things if they come to fruition. I think your timeliness is right now, get it out there so it's in the mix of everything that's being discussed.
Yeah, and
For a variety of reasons.
as we know, jails are not cheap, and this might be something where we just don't feel we can do this. However, it seems like the current condition of the jail is such, and the public safety building, that it's pretty hard to ignore. Yes, I think it's time to look at it myself, but, okay.
Anne has her hand up as well.
Ann?
Thanks, Rich. Having been at F&I, and I'm a member of F&I, so we met this morning, and we've mentioned it a couple of times about the jail project you're talking about. We, as far as I'm understanding it, we were expecting this to go to F&I before the full legislature, and I do think that's the proper way to go, and that is, as someone mentioned, the first thing that would be talking about as far as capital, this, whether or not this could fit and when it would fit into our capital reserves versus just talking about the project almost in a silo, because we at F&I we talk about all the projects and all the facilities together.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it either way. You could send it to F&I and then go to the full legislature, but our thinking was that it would be better for F&I to have the direction from the full legislature rather than 3 of us, in fact, to have you spend time on this. If the will of the legislature is not to set this as one of its priorities to examine, that would be a pretty big waste of time for all the people on F&I. That's what we were thinking. We don't have to do it that way, but it seemed the better course. And then we've just voted on it, so.
We have 2.
Okay, still, as someone said, I'd like you to talk with Shauna and Lisa at administration, just for the route, because if we have, another facility, not going through another building, or facility not going through F&I, then anybody, in theory, could just bring it to the full legislature rather than go through F&I, and
Yeah.
we haven't had a joint meeting or anything.
No, I have talked to Shauna about this, Ann. Sorry. And no, we want it to go to F&I. What we don't want is it to go to F&I without the legislature saying, yeah, this is something we have to determine whether it's a priority, and then get F&I to examine it. There's no attempt to try to bypass F&I. It's trying to give F&I clear direction.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I should have been clearer. Okay, and then I have 3 advisory board appointments I'd like to get moved. These are to the Advisory Board on Indigent Representation, David Sanders, Diane Bruns, and Christopher Colossi. Could I get a motion to put them? Travis moves and Veronica seconds. Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right. I'll call the roll. Veronica?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you. Okay, the next item we had was the Ithaca Wellness Recovery Court update, and this is the mental health court. We were going to hear that today, but Judge Peacock was not available. I believe he's in Binghamton today. So we pushed that off to our February meeting. So we do not have that item 6 on our agenda today. And then we're up to county administration. And Lisa Holmes is with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Rich. I don't have a very long report today. You all heard a rather lengthy report from me at the legislature meeting. I will say, in terms of the Community Justice Center, a data analyst was hired and began his first week last week. So he's off and running with some analyses there, and that's a good thing. And there's a resolution before you for consideration in regard to the CJC.
All right. Why don't we put that on the agenda? This is appropriation from contingent fund to implement the 2022 work plan of the Community Justice Center. Is that 22? Okay. Could I get a motion? Travis moves. Veronica seconds. Do you want to speak to that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this is really a function of two things. One, the fact that we no longer have a rollover policy. If we did, then this would likely be coming to you mid-year as a request to use rollover in the current year. These are funds, and the second piece is these are funds that were approved by the legislature both to spend and to receive in 2022 for the county and the city to implement joint plans of the CJC. The city approved and appropriated those funds in December of 2022, thereby pushing the dates further out. So what we're asking for is a request to use those funds that were approved in 2022 in 2023, and to be able to accept the funds from the city in 2023. And we're working with the city as well to ensure that we can still collect those funds and spend them.
And the total expense is $315,000, and the city will reimburse us for half of that. Is that correct? Okay. Questions, comments?
Roughly half.
Okay. Anything further? All right. I'll call the roll. Veronica?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
Mike? Yes. And the chair votes yes. So 2022 is in the books. And I assume we'll be seeing something soon for 23, or no?
Those were approved in the 2023 budget for the county, so.
Okay, so we don't need to do anything special.
That's right.
Okay, all right. And I'm very happy to hear the news about the data analyst. It's been a long time coming, and that's a really good thing. I think with Reimagining, so much of the attention is paid to very few items, but I believe this is one of the most meaningful, that we will be getting real data and tracking what we're doing. This is a good thing. So, great. Okay, anything further from county administration?
That's it for me. Thank you.
We're flying through, and our next item is the Tompkins County Sheriff. Welcome, Sheriff.
Thanks, Rich. Nice to see everybody. You have my written report. I don't have too much in addition to that today. We have, and I think I mentioned it at our last public safety meeting, we have seen a small bump in the number of inmates. We're up and hovering around the mid-50s lately. I do think it's attributed to some high-level arrests have been made in the area lately. I don't think it's a long-term number that we're going to see. I think it is transitory. And just out of interest, I had Captain Bunce pull some intake numbers over the last couple of years, and for 2022, we had 414 intakes in the jail. Compared to 2021, we had 304 that year. So there was a slight increase. Over the course of 12 months, it's really pretty significant. And I contribute that increase that we did have probably to cap court. That does include cap numbers. So I think even then, with cap being instituted, we're in pretty good shape. And then I went backwards a little bit more. In 2020, we had 264, which was our lowest intake year. And again, that was the year we had COVID and bail reform hit. 2019, we had 619, 2018, 704. And then all the way back in 1998, we had 1,174. So I think those are pretty interesting numbers that I thought it would be nice just to share with you folks. That's all I have, Rich, unless there's any questions. And I know we have a couple resolutions still on there I can speak to.
Yeah, before you get there, just in case anybody's watching at home and the reference to the cap, if you could just explain how that impacts jail numbers.
Yeah, sure. CAP is our centralized arraignment court that we instituted in the Sheriff's Office for all law enforcement agencies in Tompkins County to bring people that are in custody under arrest to be held prior to arraignment. And the arraignments are now held right here at the Sheriff's Office, one in the morning, one in the evening, and that has allowed us to return our law enforcement resources back to road patrol where they should be. So I think it's interesting that, 304 intakes in 2021, and then we started CAP in 2022, and we're up to 414. That's not a significant jump, I don't feel, compared to prior years, and I think that just attributes to the success that the county's been, for the work the county's been doing, so.
But the CAP court, because you're holding people for very short periods of time, you count them.
Yeah, they still go through the intake process and all that stuff, so yes, we count them.
Okay. All right. Before we get to resolutions, any questions or comments for our sheriff? Okay, let's move to the resolutions. We have budget adjustment, Sheriff's Office snowmobiles 2023, ID 11427. Could I get a motion on that? Veronica moves. Travis seconds. Do you want to speak to that, Derek?
Sure, I can. Yeah, if people don't realize that, we had attempted to purchase snowmobiles in 2022. We found that to be very challenging for a couple reasons. Our snowmobiles that we do currently have, we've had for many, many years, and they desperately need to be replaced. We do have a use for them. Unfortunately, it took us an inordinate amount of time to find a dealer to even sell us snowmobiles. And once we did, we had some troubles with the vendor getting us the appropriate paperwork to make the sale go through. Unfortunately, that all happened at the end of 2022, and things just kind of fell apart for us. And our hope is to have you approve it so we can keep the money in our 2023 budget and give it another shot.
Okay. I was curious, how much are the new snowmobiles?
Oh, geez, I think they're, oh boy, I hate to misspeak. I think they're roughly $16,000. Jen, do you know offhand?
Yeah, they're around $14,000, between 14 and 16, depending on the model.
So this money will allow you to get what you need?
Yes,
Yeah.
2 of them to replace the 2 that we have, and they, I believe, are over 20 years old.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're at least 15 years old. I know that.
All right, anything further on this? Ready to vote? Veronica?
Yes.
Travis? Yes. Mike? Yes. And the chair votes yes. So, there. Okay, and then you have a resolution, authorization to accept Triad Foundation donation and budget adjustment, Sheriff's Office 2023, ID 11379. Could I get a motion on that? Travis moves. Veronica seconds. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, I'll just say, Rich, we're very fortunate to have Triad Foundation. They've made donations to the Sheriff's Office before, and we certainly appreciate this one. It's rather large. We unfortunately had to put in the resolution no indication of what we were spending the money on. That wasn't intentional. We simply just had to get the check pushed through, and we haven't made decisions on that. So I didn't want anybody on the committee to think we were keeping that from you. And we will certainly, once we have some more time to even think about it, return to public safety and fill you in. So.
Yes, please, because I'd certainly like Triad to get recognition for how they helped us. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It was unexpected, and it was greatly appreciated. So we're just trying to figure out the best use of that money right now, and we'd be more than happy to keep Public Safety Committee in the loop.
Okay. All right. Anything further for our sheriff? Seeing none, we'll move on to, Veronica, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to ask what you were going to spend the money on, so I look forward to that in the future. But maybe I'm extra out of the loop, but what is the Triad Foundation, and how does their mission overlap with your office?
I'm not sure I'm the best one. Maybe. Yeah, well, I mean, they donate a lot of money. I'm not sure the correct terminology for it is. They've been supportive of us over the years. For instance, they helped pay for our UTV that we purchased, I think 2 years ago now. I'm sorry, Veronica, the name of that type of group is completely escaping me right now. Yeah, I can't answer it more than that. I apologize.
Yeah, I would say that Triad Foundation is a local philanthropic foundation that supports a lot of different community organizations. Yeah, Mike, did you have more there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I could just say that the Triad Foundation is, there used to be the Park Foundation, which it was a brother and a sister after Roy Park Sr. passed away. And the two decided to split the Park Foundation, and Adelaide Gomer is the Park side. And then Roy Park Jr., who's my boss, he is the Triad side, so he had to come up with a new name. And they both give a lot locally, gosh, so. And Roy does, I mean, the Triad gives to Sheriff's Department pretty often, and other, you'll see the name on stuff around town and whatnot, so.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And Rich, you said the word I was trying to get to come out of my head, so thank you.
Okay. Lisa, did you have something further?
Nope.
Covered? Okay.
Thanks.
Good. All right. Anything further? Matt Van Houten from the District Attorney's Office is with us. Welcome.
Thanks, Rich.
Wait, sorry, don't we have to vote on the resolution?
I thought we did, didn't we?
I think we did.
Oh, thank you, Veronica. Are we ready to vote? Anything further? Sorry. Yeah, see, I'm going too fast. Veronica?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Sorry about that. Yeah, we want to get you your money. Do it right. Okay, now Matt, welcome.
Okay, thanks, Rich. I wanted to just make a quick commentary on the sheriff's point about the jail intake numbers, and mainly just to add information to that, because the CAP has been really working well and has been a great asset for the community. But I think it should be noted that the vast majority of the people who go through the CAP are brought there to be arraigned because it's a mandatory arraignment for some reason, and then they're released. So the vast majority of those individuals don't spend 24 hours in the jail. In fact, they probably spend less than 12. So I think that's important to know, and I would love to know the numbers of intakes that exclude the CAP, or at least where they were bail eligible offenses, because people get arraigned for various reasons. One of the most common is when there needs to be an order of protection issued. So it may be an offense for which bail is not eligible or available, but the person still needs to go through the process of seeing a judge, being issued an order of protection, and then they're released. But I think it's the 400 number is not really reflective of the people who are actually being admitted to be in the jail pending their charges. And you know, that's okay, but I just wanted to make that clarification.
I think that's a good point, Matt. Yeah.
Thanks. And the point of the CAP is to free up law enforcement officers to go back on the road, especially now considering how short-staffed everyone is. that, that's a huge benefit to the community to free up those officers to go back out and patrol the county as opposed to sitting and waiting for the judge and everybody else to get to court, where that was the case before CAP. So that's my 2 cents on that piece. I wanted to just mention that
Matt, before you get there, I did have a question. I should know the answer to this. If anybody could speak to the status of the city court participating in the CAP, are they participating at present or not yet?
There were a couple of meetings I was part of, at least one of them, where we were talking about it. And I think there's an experimental schedule that involves the city court judges now for part of the CAP schedule. Derek, do you know any more about it?
My understanding is that they were on a limited basis going to try to participate as judges in CAP without bringing Ithaca City arrest to the jail, merely because we wouldn't be able to keep up with that volume currently. So yeah, I believe they're going to participate as far as providing judges to come sit in the CAP, but there's been no movement as far as IPD arrests coming to the jail to be held for CAP at this time.
Okay, thank you. Just again for clarification, if that did occur, this would provide a benefit to the Ithaca City Police Department in freeing up their officers. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's definitely correct. We just don't have the manpower or the space currently in our facility to take on that much of an increase in arrests. They do have the highest arrest numbers, I believe, in the county. So that would make a significant change on our operations at the sheriff's office.
Okay, thanks. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Matt.
No worries. My office has continued to help present red flag or ERPO proceedings in the Supreme Court. And I wanted to mention one that I think got some attention in recent months. It was a case involving a gun threat that was made on an Ithaca City school bus back in October 28th. And the reason I mention it is because it was a case where we got school district, it became clear the school district was aware of the gun threat and did not alert law enforcement. And law enforcement, the sheriff's office, was only alerted through one of the other parents of a child who was on the school bus when this threat was made to bring a gun to school on Monday and shoot the kids. So obviously, the sheriff and I are on the same page with that, in that we don't think there's any reason ever to not contact law enforcement immediately when such a threat is made, a specific threat like the one that was made in October. That case ended up in a hearing yesterday, and the ERPO was granted, but it still raises the question of whether the school district has the right policies in place to cooperate with or to even work with law enforcement in the county. So I'll put that out there. That's the status of that case. It is resolved, but the question of ICSD is not resolved, in my opinion.
Okay, go ahead, Sheriff.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to Matt, but I will say, as part of this entire process that Matt went through, and myself too, to a limited extent, I did have a meeting at the sheriff's office with the administrators of the Ithaca City School District, and apparently a similar threat was made very recently, and they actually did reach out to us. So I believe maybe we're going to start moving in a positive direction. It just so happened the state police had this case, so they were referred to them. But you know, that's something different that I haven't typically seen. So I think Matt's actions and this process is, it definitely has helped, and I'm hopeful that we'll have better relationships in the future.
Yeah,
Great, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, thank you for that report. And it seems like this is something where there should be a a joint policy so that everybody's on the same page with this, and maybe that's not where everybody's at yet.
Well, it sounds like there might be more hope now moving forward.
Do you think there would be any benefit from proceeding in a more formal manner rather than reacting to what seem to be scary incidents, and then trying to drive the policy backwards from those incidents? It seems like it would be better to get into a room in a calm atmosphere and say, how's the best way to anticipate and deal with these things? And it sounds like you guys are all in on that.
Derek did have a meeting with the school administrators last week. And, you know, I think that could be a building block to continue that conversation.
Okay. Well, thank you for pursuing it. Seems to make sense. Yeah. Okay.
The last thing I'll add, which I know I'm talking longer than I usually do, but sorry.
Don't apologize.
Our numbers in January for number of cases, number of arrests in January of 2023 are on pace to be about 150% of the normal numbers on average. So I mean, that's of concern, and I think that's a contributing factor to the number of people in the jail right now and the number of intakes that are happening in 2023. And I think it is cyclical, but it's a product of various things, including mental illness, including guns, drugs. But we've been extremely busy in January, and I'm hoping for a little bit of a respite. But that's a trend that we're starting off very, very busy in 2023.
Okay. Questions for the district attorney? Anybody? Do you see any reasons why that's happening, Matt?
Not that are related. I mean, they're just a combination of, unrelated incidents that have all been happening at the same time.
Okay. All right. Moving on, next on our agenda is Department of Emergency Response. I see Michael Steitley is with us.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Jessica?
Rich, there were just two areas in the Tomstat report that I wanted to highlight that occurred last month. The first was we held our second Citizen Preparedness Corps training in the city of Ithaca. That was done in partnership with GIAC. The training is designed for community members to come in and learn about emergency preparedness. It's done in partnership with the New York State National Guard and also the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. When the participants finish the 90-minute program, they're given a go bag and an emergency preparedness kit that they can use in their home. And we're really excited about it. We had about 30 attendees, and it was the second one that we held this year in the county, the first, as I understand it, in the city. And we just wanted to extend our thanks and gratitude for GIAC for being a partner with us and helping us get that program out to the community. The second thing I wanted to highlight, on the 7th of December, we ran a 24-hour triage drill with our EMS partners in the county. I'm excited to share that every one of our transport agencies did participate in the triage drill. And for those on the call that aren't familiar with what I mean by triage, emergency medical services uses a specific methodology to triage patients at mass casualty incidents to determine a priority in which they're transported to a medical facility. So what we did here at the Department of Emergency Response, we supplied triage tags to all of our transport agencies. These would be the same tags we would use on a mass casualty incident. As they went out and handled their day-to-day calls, they also used a certain methodology that we use to triage patients during a mass casualty event to practice this skill. They then transmitted to the 911 center how they triaged that patient, and then when they arrived at CMC, they gave a briefing to the ER nurse receiving that patient. The ER nurse then collected the tags and turned them back into us, so we could see how they actually used the method that they used to triage that particular patient, and then also how many patients could be accounted for in that 24-hour period. So just as a side note, in that 24-hour period, we had 42 EMS calls in the county that we used, had an opportunity to actually exercise this drill. So it was well received by the EMS community, the 911 center, and CMC. It's a great opportunity to bring all these partners together and to really focus on something that we hadn't done here in the past. And this really ties into some of the other activities that we participate in the county when it comes to like the working with the airport for an aviation accident. So we plan on doing this exercise twice a year. The next exercise will be done in June, and will then include the rescue agencies in the county that are dispatched through the fire service, so they can also have a chance to exercise and practice this critical skill. But I just wanted to extend my gratitude to all the community partners that were willing to embrace this, everybody that participated, and their willingness to want to continue with this biannually. So thank you very much.
Good news. Okay. Questions or comments for Michael? I do note on the Tomstat, I hate to be a broken record on this, but again, we are seeing higher than average reports in the poisoning overdose line, which is really unfortunate that this is not trending in the right direction. But yeah, a bigger problem. Yeah. Okay. And Jen, thank you for the updates on the overdose report. Those are really instructive. Yeah. Right. Anything further for Department of Emergency Response? Okay, let's keep moving. Next up is Department of Probation and Community Justice. And Dan, I see you with us, and Carla?
Yep, good afternoon. Thank you, Rich. I just wanted to, since you came back to the overdose and drug poisonings, I did want to just say, because I don't think it was said before, that the xylazine is not reversible by Narcan. So in combination with the fentanyl, the Narcan is not an antigen for that. So that's causing a lot of problems for our EMS people.
Yeah, and that was one of the things in the article, is that emergency medical shows up and they administer Narcan, and then they do it again and again, and it's not having any impact. Yeah, yeah. One more scary thing about it.
Yes. Also wanted to piggyback off of Matt and the sheriff's conversation with Ithaca City School. We noticed a demonstrable reduction in referrals to our PINS program and access to services for youth being requested by Ithaca City Schools in 2022. Jan Gorbitz and I did go over and meet with them along with one of our probation officers that was assigned, tried to come to an understanding of what we had to offer and how we had to offer it. The school had chosen for a while to partner with the village at Ithaca and try another approach. They recently contacted us to schedule a meeting to try to see how we could work together again, and that's scheduled for January 30th. So we're looking forward to, rebuilding that relationship or restoring our services to the folks there that need us. Got quite a few things going on. I wanted to mention that last night we had our third DWI Victim Impact Panel since October. We did 3 in a row to clear a backlog because there hadn't been any DWI Victim Impact Panels in 2 years due to COVID. We've now cleared that backlog, and the team here that was working on Victim Impact Panel has got the county courthouse to agree to let us resume doing those twice a year at the court, which gives us a bigger venue, more space to space people out, and it also is less taxing on the very limited speakers that we have who come to share their experience in losing a loved one to a DWI. So if they only have to do that twice a year instead of 3 or 4 times a year, that's better for them and it's better for us. So we're happy to be back on track with that. We are still seeing slightly lower DWI numbers than we have in years past, but we still have 2 very full caseloads and some overflow for DWIs. But we don't have that backlog of folks who need the victim impact panel in order to successfully complete their probation conditions. We're working on some partnerships for our 2023 goals. Going to be working with Visions Federal Credit Union on some financial management, budgeting, all kinds of access to learning tools for our folks, and probably a class once a month at the day reporting office. Recently agreed to be the host site for Cornell Cooperative Extension doing green energy recertification class. It's a 60-hour credential class for folks entering into the green energy fields. They're going to use our day reporting space in the afternoons a couple times a week. They're looking to train 8 to 12 individuals to enter the green energy market. So we're happy to partner with them. And we're looking forward to partnering with URO and Healthy Food for All in the spring to try and get access to their services for a lot of our folks who struggle with access to good quality, healthy foods. So got a few things, irons in the fire that we're happy about. We're just collaborating with the community. Just looking at my notes. Oh, March 11th, we're going to do a judges training. We had to push it back a little bit. It's been a little chaotic here. After Jan's retirement, we did some restructuring and moving people around to different caseloads. So there's a lot of caseload transitions. It's keeping my supervisors very, very busy, and as well as the POs as they're introducing their old caseloads to the new PO and vice versa. So we just pushed that back a couple of weeks. But we're going to be talking about our new electronic monitoring devices that we contracted for. We still have the old contract, but we have the newer contract for some smaller waterproof devices that we think will be good for our youth and for people who are probably lower level risk to the community.
Hey, March 11th, you said?
March 11th, it's a Saturday. We're going to do that from 10 to noon. I think that's it, other than just to echo what Matt was saying about the violence that's seen in the community. We currently have 27 people under probation supervision for weapons possession and 7 open investigations. So that's a caseload and a half of just weapons cases. Lance is here now. Lance and I have gone back and forth a few times discussing whether or not Tompkins was a give county, a gun-involved violence elimination county. And then a week later, there was an announcement made by the governor that she was expanding funding for that program. So that is something we might want to talk about as a community, whether or not we would like to try to access those funds.
I think that would be a good topic for us to get a report on. Yes, please. And, okay.
Nice to have one resolution.
All right.
So that's for $4,752 from DCJS to us to support our.
Yeah, let me put that on the floor.
Okay.
Authorization to accept an award of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services, Probation and Community Justice Department, ID 11438. Could I get a motion? Travis moves, Veronica seconds. Yeah, Dan, could you talk to that?
Yes, this is grant funding that we get to help support our supervision of conditional discharge ignition interlock device cases, as well as a few of our probation ignition interlock device cases.
Okay. I assume we want the money. Is it $4,752?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are any questions, comments on this? We ready to vote? Veronica?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that passes. Okay. And any questions or comments for the Department of Probation? All right. Seeing none, we can keep moving. And I see Lance has arrived. He was on a call, I believe, regarding the Harold Herring litigation, and I think he can actually give us some hot-off-the-press news. Welcome, Lance.
Yes. Hi, Rich. Yeah, no, I was on a call with actually the plaintiff's attorneys in that lawsuit. The background, what's going on there, it relates to 18B rates. And I think Rich and I had talked, I think I'm going to give you a fuller update in the February public safety meeting, which will be a lot longer. But what's going on with the Hurl Herring settlement, which affects us because of Sigler County, which is a Hurl Herring settlement county. An enforcement action on that settlement agreement's been filed against the state, basically stating that the failure to raise the 18B rates is causing the state and the counties to fall out of compliance with that agreement. It relates to caseload quality representation in those 5 counties.
And Lance, if I could just interrupt you just for a second. For anybody watching who hasn't been following this riveting story, there were 5 counties that sued New York State to get the 18B rates, which are the rates paid for assigned counsel attorneys for people who cannot afford an attorney. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
So yeah, this litigation, it's all relates to those assigned counsel rates. This one may have the most immediate impact because the settlement agreement that was done between the counties and the state back in 2015, I think, part of that agreed on the state side was that they would ensure financial resources to ensure compliance with the agreement. So the plaintiffs are now saying, because the legislature sought to pass, an increase in rates, among other things, the governor didn't approve it. And because there's been no increase in rates, you're out of compliance. It's the state's fault because you haven't provided financial resources. So now we want, I think what they're after is the judge to order a rate increase, which the state then funds. Kind of to get to the heart of the matter. And so they were discussing with me the state of affairs in terms of our work in Sigler County. They're seeking my understanding is they're going to seek an injunction Monday to get a temporary increase pending resolution of their enforcement action.
And for Tompkins County, the upshot is that the decision made in that litigation could be carried over to all the other counties that aren't part of the Hurl Herring litigation, so that would affect assigned counsel rates here. And particularly, it may lead to the state assuming responsibility. Is that a fair summary, Lance?
Correct. Yep, that's a very good, succinct summary of the state of the matter.
So more to come there, and I've asked Lance if he could give us a report in February and also talk about just how our system differs from the idea of a public defender's office. It sounds like a public defender's office would be problematic for a few different reasons, but it would make sense to me that the Public Safety Committee has an understanding of what that would entail, just so we can know, at any rate. But that's more to come in February.
Yeah. Yep. And that's nothing, other than that, nothing new from us. We're seeing a lot of cases. Matt and Derek need to take their staffs on vacation for a long time and make us happy in terms of our workload. But no, things are kind of continuing as they have been for a while. And then in February, I can give you a more in-depth update.
Yeah, certainly our district attorney and sheriff were saying that January has been a very busy month, and hopefully it does calm down a bit. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on everything. Okay, any questions or comments for Lance? Seeing none, we will carry on, and I'd like to now pick, one thing I would just mention, it does appear that our new members and the present ones, everybody's available to continue meeting at our present time, the third Thursday of the month at 3 o'clock. So we will hold that time. And I hope that works for everybody on the department level, that you just keep this on your calendar as it has been. Moving on, I would like to just talk a little bit about what we had established as our priorities for 2022, and to begin the discussion for 2023, but we don't yet have all of our members here for 2023, so I think we'll continue that discussion in February, but I would like to review where we've been. And before I forget, I'd like to thank Travis for his service on public safety. He'll be going on to do good things elsewhere. And to note the passing of Henry Granison, who was a passionate member of public safety for many years and is, of course, no longer with us. But 2022, we had a busy year, and our first priority that was shown on our list was consider a capital program at the jail to address needed upgrades. I'd like to thank everybody who helped us with that work, including the sheriff for arranging the visit to Shenango County to see their facility, and for touring us through and giving us a lot of detail on the conditions at the jail, and Arel Lamaro for helping us do that as well. I think we learned a lot, and we accomplished a goal in terms of passing a resolution on this matter, which we just reconsidered today. Whether that continues as a priority for 2022 really depends on where this goes with the F&I committee, but I imagine we will be continuing to monitor this. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on that priority in 2022? Okay. Is that agreement, or is it no opinion? Okay. I think we will need to look more at this in 2022 because the condition of the jail is such that we can't not continue to watch it, but it really will be influenced by what our colleagues on the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee do. Our next priority was monitoring the implementation of the Reimagining Public Safety Agenda, and we've gotten regular reports on that. Is Mona with us? I don't see her on the...
She had a conflicting meeting.
Okay. I would say there was a tremendous amount of work done on reimagining public safety from the county side in 2022. I don't believe there were really a lot of actions for us to take, but we received regular reports. And it does seem that there has been real progress along the lines of trying to further the 18 priorities we set in our resolution that we passed in, I believe it was March of 2021. So that has really moved along, including creation of the department and setting it in motion. I would say that it's been a different type of arrangement working in combination with the city. I'm very happy that the city passed their work, the 22 work plan in December to at least get that approved and to effectively bless a lot of the work that Mona and the CJC had already done, and other departments. But I'm looking forward in 23 that there's a lot of things that we've set in motion that will be continuing, and I anticipate that will continue to be a priority for us to see where all that is going. But I'd welcome comment on what we did and where we think we should be going. Do you guys think this should continue to be a priority? Yes. Yeah? Okay. Okay, and I don't want to be the only one speaking here, but I'll continue to blather on. Let's see, the next priority we had identified was monitor the local impacts of New York State bail and discovery reform legislation. And frankly, we set this up as a priority. I'm not sure we did that much on it or needed to. It seems that that our departments managed through, that we had set aside additional budget to anticipate the increased demands for records management, particularly body camera video that had to be processed and delivered. And from the standpoint of bail reform, I believe we had less impact here than in a lot of counties because we were already implementing so much of what the legislation was anticipating counties doing already. So we didn't see that big a change. I also think that having such a rich panel of alternatives to incarceration, we were better placed to deal with the changes that bail reform brought to us. But I'd welcome comment there. I don't know if the sheriff or the district attorney or assigned counsel have any comments on whether there's any pushes or pulls that we're not dealing with very well in regard to bail reform or discovery reform legislation.
I don't see anything, Rich. I mean.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure this is something that we need to really think about going forward. And then the next priority we had was determine impacts of proposed marijuana legalization. We did have some conversation about this, but really we haven't gotten to the point where there's actual legal sales of marijuana in Tompkins County yet, I believe. There was some talk about it, there being dispensaries approved and opened before the end of the year, but I'm not aware that that's actually happened. But I'd be educated on that if anybody knows.
I don't know if there's any approved, but there is quite a few smoke shops that do sell marijuana and other marijuana products illegally.
Illegally, okay. Mike.
Challenge Industries, I think, was given the permit to sell in Tompkins. I think it's the only one that's been given that permit. I don't believe they've opened yet, but that they will. And I guess my question for the committee will be, and the sheriff and everybody is, like he was saying, I mean, there's these other shops that are open. What do we do about that? I mean, if Challenge is the legal seller, it'd be like a liquor, I would put it in the context of a liquor store, right? I mean, Northside Liquor has a permit. I would imagine they'd be kind of annoyed if somebody across the street opened without said permit, so.
I tend to agree with you. And it sounds like this may end up being something we would continue to track in '23 as this rolls out. Matt, I see your hand.
Well, just to address Mike's question, I think it's going to be a civil matter if people are selling without a license. It's not something I'm looking to prosecute criminally. I think, unfortunately, this is one of the things that hasn't happened yet. None of the infrastructure of the regulation or regulatory bodies is in place. So, when that happens, there would be ways to enforce licensing requirements and things like that. But in the short term, there isn't any of such infrastructure.
Yeah, I think just to follow up, Matt, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Mike, I think most of these shops that are selling marijuana are technically, they'll claim they're not selling. They're selling someone a sticker and then they give them as a prize or something, a legal amount of marijuana. I think that's how they see themselves evading the law. I mean, they're selling marijuana, but
it's still not,
they play.
Still not authorized by law.
No, you're very correct, Matt.
And they know them.
Yeah,
they know them.
Yeah, they're playing games, but I think Matt's correct. It may become more of a civil enforcement thing, problem.
Yeah, and I believe there's been rulings from New York State saying that is not okay to have the purchase of some nominal item and gifting the marijuana. I see Dan and then Mike.
I just wanted to remind folks is, I believe the way the law is written, as soon as a legal dispensary is open in the community, any adult over the age of 21 can grow up to 6 plants at their residence. And that's per adult in the household. So if you have up to a certain number, which I forget what the upward number is, but so 3 adults in a household could be growing 18 plants legally, 4 could be growing 24. So that's going to change the dynamic as well as far as people needing to go to a dispensary because they'll be able to grow some of their own for personal use.
Yeah. Okay. Mike?
I guess my question remains, I mean, I guess, fine, we're not going to prosecute. I find that, I don't know, really, okay, that's fine, but there is absolutely no way I can open a liquor store on the Commons without a permit, without somebody coming and saying something. I'm curious from the state who that person's going to be. I mean,
well, with the liquor store, the ABC board comes and shuts you down. That's a civil regulatory body.
Oh, there you go. All right.
We don't have such a body for marijuana yet, but there should be. The state did this action without being able to actually enforce it.
Cool. So do we have any responsibility in that then? Or is that strictly the state comes in with state police and
Well, I'm not going to stop prosecuting gun cases to prosecute pot cases.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it's on you, Matt. I'm saying, do you think that's what the state would do? Like, they'll set up this authority and then they'll bring, like, state police in to close something down or?
I don't know. I'm not sure anybody knows the answer.
All right. Yeah, I don't know how that's done, to be honest with you.
Lee?
We take it in another direction. Have we projected any budgetary revenue from the
you and the money.
Cannabis?
Yeah, I think there's a tax issue, and we want our money.
Well, I would think the state would too.
Yes, I would think, yeah, all governmental levels would benefit from the tax revenue that was contemplated, and the idea that it may not be collected or is only collected to the extent of sales tax rather than the specific excise tax for marijuana, yeah, is a pretty important question. Lisa.
To answer that question or to speak to that question, we received information, I think it was last week, from the Office of State Comptroller that there will be a specific tracking mechanism and a separate budget line in place for us to, for all counties to track that incoming revenue.
Okay.
Did we appropriate or estimate a revenue? So it hasn't gone in yet at this point.
And I don't believe our budget has any calculation or guess as to, yeah. But given the conversation we just had, it sure looks like this is a possible thing for us to continue to focus on in '23. Travis.
It is. It's the New York Office of Cannabis Management. They had a big thing, a big article in New York City because there's so many shops. And they've started to crack down this agency in New York. So if you get caught selling illegally at a shop, they shut you down and you can't get a permit after that. And after so many times of getting caught, you get arrested because they want New York State to get their tax money.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and certainly Challenge Industries, wants to run a dispensary that is viable. So, yeah, having them be the dispensary makes some sense. Okay, well, that looks like that's something we'll talk about in February that probably would remain as a priority. Did you have something further?
It was the challenge just medical or is it recreational? He thinks it's just medical, and he may very well be correct. I have no idea. So, I just knew that they were the.
Is there a continuing distinction between medical and non-medical?
Medical, you still have to have a card, and you can only buy so much, and recreation is different. My cousin got one. He was the first one in Broome County to get one for recreation. It's very different.
But the medical exception is continuing as well? Interesting. Okay. All right. The next priority we had identified was study the impacts of crime, particularly violent crime, upon individual victims and our county as a whole. And I think we did have some discussion about this, but I don't think we really did very much in this area. And that's certainly unfortunate, but I would say that this issue has not gone away, and perhaps this is something we should continue to carry and try to figure out how we could do something more in this area. But that'll be a discussion for February. Those are the items we'd identified. Looking back at the year, I would say we did spend a fair amount of time talking about opiates and what the county position is on opiates, and hearing from some people whose lives had been disrupted by drug addiction, and particularly from a woman whose son had passed away as a result of poisoning, and I'll use that term, poisoning, with an opiate. I think that's certainly, given what we were just talking about with xylazine in our community, that will continue to be something we will be paying attention to in 23. But I would welcome comment from anybody on that issue. I think that will continue to be, unfortunately, an area we'll have to look at. And again, not to front load too much on our February meeting, but I also think that we're going to see changes in our ambulance service, and this will be a pretty big area of focus for us, or should be, that we're going to see addition of a headcount at Department of Emergency Response, and in a coordination role, and looking at how that rolls out, and tracking how we see impacts with response times and services throughout the county, would seem to be something that we want to pay attention to. But I'd welcome comment there. And Lee, I think you probably have some opinions there. And you're nodding your head that would be certainly a focus for us in 23. Without closing the door on anybody, and I would include everybody on the call, do you see any other areas we should be thinking about generally in 23? I'll give you a moment to think about it. Mike, you almost looked like you were going to say something.
Well, you had already brought up the ambulance service, that we're going to keep track of that. I think we made a lot of progress with that this year, and I love the fly car idea. So if that was something we,
Yeah.
that just seems to be a good way for us to go. And it is public safety, so.
Yeah. Lee?
In general, I think anywhere where we've increased staffing for various reasons, it's something that the committee ought to be monitoring the effectiveness of what those additions are able to produce.
Yeah, we've certainly made some changes in the Sheriff's Department, and particularly with the combination of mental health and deputies approaching calls. I think that's going to be a pretty important area for us to learn about. But maybe that comes within the reimagining category. But certainly, yes, I agree with you there. Yeah. Anything else? Mike?
This is not to bash the city, but I think we do got to keep track of the policing in the city. I talked to someone's wife yesterday, who's a police officer's wife. Morale is still not great. I mean, I don't know the fix for that. I know they're still short-staffed. I know there's a lot of weight there on that. And I'm not saying there's anything the county can do about it, but it's certainly something I think we got to acknowledge.
Well,
just keep track of it.
Yeah. I think that is something that we want to pay attention to, because it goes to the broader question of public safety as a cooperative venture among all the police agencies and emergency services throughout the county, that we all work together. And yeah, if one of the departments is experiencing some challenges, it puts pressures elsewhere on the system.
I know Derek's team is going down into the city more and helping out a lot, and that's obviously everybody in the city is a county citizen as well. So, and I'm glad to see Derek doing that. So,
I as well. And Sheriff, thank you for your attention to this issue, by the way. Veronica.
Yeah, thank you. This is not really a goal, it's more of a philosophical statement, but I want to make sure this committee doesn't lose sight of how broad the topic of safety and public safety is. Like, I think by necessity, our committees are kind of siloed, but, you know, like most of the stuff, most of the departments that report to Health and Human Services say could also be part of like keeping the public safe, or the housing stuff in another committee. And so it's not really a goal. I just want to make sure that like we don't lose sight of that interconnectedness. Like, you know, by the time the folks on this call, most of the, like the departments that report here, I see others get involved with the situation. There's already, you know, you all do great work and like some sort of hazard to someone has already occurred. I really liked that we had that joint meeting. You know, it was focused on, with Health and Human Services last year, it was focused on opiates, but I'm sure there's lots of other topics to talk about. And I'd love to explore that possibility again, maybe especially because I won't be on the other committee as well.
I think you make a good point, Veronica. And if there's anything specific you believe we should be paying attention to that doesn't appear specifically within our turf or brief, you know, that might be something where we do note it as a priority, that we do pay attention to something in addition. We certainly don't want to poach on another committee's responsibilities, but understanding and making sure we're working in concert makes great sense to me. And I agree with you. That was a very good meeting I thought we had as a joint one between Health and Human Services and Public Safety. And I'd like to see if we could do that again this 2023.
I guess one topic I'll throw out is mental health. Like, it's a health topic, but I think I've heard, you know, all the department heads here talk about increasing mental health issues and the folks you're working with that you've seen. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right on. Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, so that if you think about something after the meeting, you say, you know, this is an area we really should look at, I'd ask for you to send me an email. What I will try to do for our February meeting is to do the same thing we did last year, of put together a draft, and that will be our draft for discussion purposes, and we will hopefully kick it pretty hard and determine whether it is adequate or we should be looking at other things, or getting rid of something that is on the list. But I'll take the first crack at that, so that we have something to react to, if that's acceptable to everybody. Okay. And again, I wanted to thank Henry and Travis, but I also want to recognize our joining members. Annie, I think you're coming on board, and Lee. So welcome, and we'll see everybody in February. Is there other business to come before the Public Safety Committee before we adjourn? Seeing none, I'd consider a motion to adjourn. Show of hands. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.